we are deploying every tool and strategy that we possibly can. The only thing that we're not doing is we're not shooting people who come across the border because, of course, the Biden administration would charge us with murder.
Good Christian stuff. The only reason we're not shooting migrants coming across the border is because we'd get in trouble with Papa. Not that it's wrong to murder people who aren't hurting. Nothing about that. It doesn't bother him as a Christian. It doesn't bother him as a man. It doesn't bother him as a human or as an American. The only thing that is stopping him and his border forces from gunning down migrants is we might get sued for it. And look, we keep covering this, but it is so many right-wingers now that are just frothing at the mouth to take the guns out and start shooting people at the border. Ron DeSantis goes way further than Abbott there. I mean, he's directly advocating for it. He doesn't care if it would theoretically get them in trouble. He just wants people to be gunned down. And Greg Abbott, this isn't like a prospective job he wants to have. He is the governor of Texas, and he feels totally comfortable saying that if there was not the threat of Biden, they'd be shooting people. Which, by the way, in an election year is a reminder that, according to Greg Abbott, were Donald Trump in charge, they would just be gunning people down at the border. They would be building a border wall of corpses at the border, of migrants, just piling them high. Men, women, and children that dared to cross our sacred border would be shot on sight if he was freed up to do that, and he might well be. Brett, what do you think?
Right, and somewhere in the discussion of let's shoot unarmed people, you should realize that you're saying the word people. And there should be something in your mind like that sets off an alarm that says like, oh, I'm the baddie here. Like these people aren't coming here to do, like this family isn't coming here to do something horrible to me specifically. I understand though, like if you're living in a place and people are just like running through it, like you're not gonna be happy with that. But like the answer is not to shoot unarmed people and celebrate it. And with people like DeSantis and Trump, you see this theme and wannabe dictators, or at least people in the search of power throughout history, they always do stuff like this. Like this, the more afraid they are they're gonna lose power, the more likely they are to say stuff like this. With DeSantis, like he is losing his presidential election campaign and he is leaning into stuff like this. Why? Because he thinks it'll help him get power more, because people need to wildly embrace something that they wouldn't if they were just in a normal situation embrace, which in this case is like senseless violence and shooting people that don't have guns.
Yeah, I think that your read on the politics of it 100% accurate. We should remind everyone, if they have not been following what's been going on in Texas or our coverage of what's been going on in Texas, he has previously talked about how he has built more border wall, as well as the floating border barriers, which doesn't sound that bad when you just say it that way. But remember, they're buoys that have razor sharp edges. The idea is that you will get caught on these buoys in the middle of a river. You will either bleed out or you will drown as a result of the injuries that you will suffer. Multiple people already did die thanks to those. And again, that's just add that to the list of things that doesn't bother him at all as a Christian. He's also got a new law making deportation a state level action, basically allowing law enforcement to function as federal immigration or border patrol forces. He also seized the Eagle Pass border park without warning to combat the migrant crisis, according to a mayor in the area. Again, all like their past concerns back in the 90s about eminent domain and all that just immediately fly out the border as soon as they're scared of a caravan. But anyway, I wanted to also let you know what Trump is saying about this area, because they could soon be allies on this if Trump gets back into office. Says, so let me get this straight. We're dropping bombs all over the Middle East again, where I defeated ISIS. And our Secretary of Defense, who just went missing for 5 days, is running the war from his laptop in a hospital room. Remember, this is the same gang that surrendered. He put it in quotation marks, so I guess he doesn't think they surrendered, which is nice. In Afghanistan, where no one was held accountable or fired. It was the most embarrassing moment, wise moment in quotation marks, in the United States. Now we have wars in Ukraine, Israel, and Yemen, but no war on our southern border. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Crooked Joe Biden is the worst president in the history of the United States. Okay, so again, we have had the strikes in Yemen, which we'll be talking more about on the main show. We are contributing money and equipment to Ukraine. Israel also contributing money and equipment. We're not fighting in those areas, at least as of right now. I will remind you, we were dropping bombs all over the Middle East under Donald Trump. He massively increased the bombing campaigns in multiple countries. The thing about all of this that frustrates him, Brett, is that we are not bombing the southern border. And remember that, everyone, when the right pitches themselves as anti-interventionist or whatever, Marjorie Greene will say that she is against foreign wars and then say we should invade northern Mexico. Trump wants to bomb the southern border, blow up like a family. A woman and her 8-year-old kid fleeing from Guatemala should be blown up with 2,000-pound bombs. And the fact that that isn't happening is unacceptable to all of these devoted Christians. Final comment goes to you, Brett.
It's just like when you see, it's like you open up Trump's head and you look in at this tweet and you're like, oh my God. I'm reminded of the John Lovitz line as Dukakis talking about Bush, but in this case, it would be Biden talking about Trump. It's like, how am I losing to this guy? Like, he's such a moron. Last thing is, this really encapsulates Donald Trump doctrine, which is just say a bunch of words that get people feeling moderately patriotic and don't imply that you would ever do anything. Trump, like, he heightened tensions all over the world. He just wasn't at the comms when it exploded. And he wants credit for it.
Sort of similarly, he keeps saying like, how can we surrender in Afghanistan? He was already planning the exact same thing. Like, he had already planned it before he left the presidency. He wanted to pull out too. He could have, if he was so against war as he implies that he was. He was president for 4 years. He didn't pull us out. Anyway, the whole thing is absolutely nonsensical. The issue is that while all of this is absurd and we can sort of mock them for being morons and being complete hypocrites on their supposed religious values, people are dying at the border in Texas and in other states. And with these new policies, if border governors like Greg Abbott feel freed up to do what they really want to do, it could get a whole lot worse.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.